Hello, everyone. Happy Monday to all of you. We're back with our conversations with our multi authors. Okay, I just want to clear a couple of things up because I've been getting messages about is it still, is there still time to join? Is there still chapters to join in? Absolutely. That's part of the reason I'm having these is so that you can see that everybody comes from a different place in terms of wanting to write, and there's still an opportunity to get in on the chapter. And today, I want to introduce to you a friend, but also a surprise that she wanted to jump in on this. Deanna, hello there.
Hi, dear. I'm surprised too.
So, tell us a little bit about your journey of I mean, what it was it when we were talking because you hadn't seen it online. We met at a networking event through Fave Biz Society. Karen, shout out to Karen Ray. And
Yeah.
I was just mentioning it. What was the thing that made you go, "Ooh, I think this is something I want to be a part of"?
I don't know. Well, I do know. It started with the fact that you asked me, and I love the idea. I love the idea of women getting together and telling our little stories as part of a big story. But
Mm.
like all your guests, I think every one of them, I'm driving home going, "Oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why did I say yes? I don't know what I'm going to talk about." I'm that's what I do is I write and I tell stories, and still I left going, "Why did I tell her I'd do this? I didn't know." Yeah. But it started
And
with you asking and believing that I had a story to tell. And I think that's probably what you've done with all of us.
well, thank you for that. I have a natural innate curiosity for how people have existed or why they are choosing into the life that they're choosing into. And you know, I think so much of my fascination is how we look on the outside is not how we are when we're communicating and sharing and being vulnerable with each other. And I think that's the piece that was always so fascinating. I'm like, oh my gosh, your journey sounds so intriguing and fascinating, right?
And whenever
Because of
you
your
do it
journey.
with a genuine curiosity, we've been at many, many networking events where, you chit chat and, exchange information, but the way you asked and the interactions that I had with you before then gave me a comfort and a confidence that in your request, that wow, if she thinks I have something that I might contribute, of course, yes, I'll be a part. And so your belief in us played a big part.
Oh, oh man, that's thank you so much for sharing that. I often it's interesting that you say that because what I see is like, oh, how can I be more like them? When I one of the fascinating ladies, if you don't know, one of the most fascinating parts of Deanna is that she's already written two books.
Three
She's
books.
actually are and you're celebrating your third one right now, right? You just finished your third one. And I when I brought it up, I didn't think you'd be interested because I thought, oh, she's a pro. She's already written two, she's got one on the way. And I was so curious what brought you to wanting to share your stories in your initial two books. And that was a really fascinating journey to hear. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, were when you were like 7 years old, were you like, "Oh, I'm going to be a writer. This is what I'm going
No,
to do."
no, and no. And I was an English major in college, and still, I've got professors who would be going, "What? She wrote books? She didn't even get her papers turned in college. Like, really, what is this all about?" It, My mom, I love telling stories. My mom had always wanted me to write a book, and mom, writers write books. I'm trying to get two boys, off to school this morning. I don't have time for books. But I got to the point in life where I had time to reflect, was ready to reflect. And it really started with one story. I wanted my boys to know how I met their father in college. I was not in the
Oh.
library studying at the time. And before things digressed into too many teehee moments, I wanted them to know that they were part of a very wonderful marriage, a special family.
Oh.
And so I expected to, write one story, run up to Staples, print it on pretty paper, and bestow it upon them at the next family dinner. Well, as we will find as we start telling our stories, one story led to another story, led to another story,
Mm.
and I finished going, wow, I think I wrote a book. I think this is a book. And one book became two books, became three books because storytelling is the best. It really is the
Yeah. I
mhm.
mean, storytelling is, I mean, I just did an ancestry.com. I just did the ancestry
Yeah,
DNA test. And I think those are really fascinating, but it's kind of lackluster when it doesn't come with a story. Like,
yeah,
it's awesome that I can see generations, that I've never met or I've probably never even heard of. But because I don't know their stories, it's kind of like I'm feeling a bigger hole because I don't know how they existed or who they were. And I
yeah,
think, and for me, I recently have two granddaughters, and I watch them all the time, and I think, when I'm not here anymore on this earth and they're looking to find a connection to me, like I
yeah,
did when my mom passed away, I
yeah,
want them to have something tangible that has, and then I want them to have a book of my friends, 20 of my other amazing friends and their stories, because
yes, yes. I
you
love,
know
yeah, I love including my grandsons, Enzo, Austin, and Cameron in my stories. They're part of book three, a big part of book three. And I want them to know um, what an impact they've had on me, the lessons that they have taught me as 3 year olds, as 4 year olds, as 6 year olds, how I've
mm.
become such a much better person because of who they are and the lessons that I've learned from them. It's the best. It's the best.
And I think that that's really what we're trying to create in this world, is to impart our wisdom or our experiences and our knowledge to the next generation, because we just didn't have as much of that. I was close to my mom, but not close to where she shared depth. Like, for instance, ladies, this might be TMI. I'm going through premenopause, and I don't really remember having those conversations with her,
Yeah.
when we were younger. And I thought, and she's not here anymore. So I have to lean on girlfriends who've been through it, or books and YouTube channels or whatever. But that's kind of like, why didn't she tell me? I was going to go through it anyways, Why didn't we have these conversations?
That's important. Wonderful. I I never had those kind of conversations with my mom about
Hmm.
anything, about growing up, about going to
Hmm.
school. How she decided to marry dad. I mean, I we just didn't talk about that kind of thing. Before my mother-in-law passed, we had a lot of great conversations together about her childhood. She remembers the Sunday, the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and being out in the middle of the
Wow.
street, walking home from church, and
Wow.
learning from the neighbor. I mean, she started telling about all these stories that I had never heard before. And it's like, oh my gosh, why weren't we having these conversations 10 years ago,
Mhm.
20 years ago? We've got a lot of things we could have been sharing. And it just gave me this richer picture of who she was, what she's
Mhm.
experienced, how she, and then what she imparted to me. What a
Right.
blessing that was.
Wow. So now, There's some people who might be listening and watching thinking, okay, she's a English major, she's already written 2 books, and is this so I've got two sides of the coin here. I have
Mhm.
women who've already I talk to women who already have written actual like many chapter books, and then I have uh women who've come to me like myself who's like because I'd rather run a marathon than kind of run that chapter.
Please,
So
God,
what
don't
is
make me do this. Please, God, don't make me do this.
so what would your advice be to both types of people? One who's written a book, would a chapter be uh something that would be useful or even something they would want to do, or and then somebody who's like, oh, I'd rather root canal or writing a book. I don't know. Writing a story.
Um, Whether you've never done this, don't want to do this, um, share your story.
Hmm.
And one story, perhaps the story, it might relate to business. How did you decide to take the step and become an
Mm,
entrepreneur? How did you decide that you needed to do this and not that?
hmm.
It starts with just one story. And as you write, if you'll excuse my language, Anne Lamott talks about starting with a shitty first draft. We all do. We all do. Just get the words down on paper.
Mm,
Um, Connecting with Lisa Publishing, they'll edit. They'll help you like get some
hmm.
structure. If you run into a roadblock. Um, but you're not in eighth grade English. You don't have to worry about sentence structure. Just get the story told. When I
Hmm.
speak, I often encourage women to start with a letter. Write a letter to yourself. Write a letter to
Oh,
others
that's a
who
good
are going
one.
to read it. Because when we write letters, it helps us get away from the worry about sentence structure, the worry about, okay, I've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I've got, it helps us get away from, we all write letters. We can all write letters. Start
Hmm.
there and just write us a letter.
Oh, that's
Anything
so
about what you want to
good.
do as a way to get started. And from there, you'll probably flesh it out a little bit differently, but it'll help get that first step. Um,
Oh, I love that advice. I love, because letter writing is so uninhibited. It's
uh-huh.
very vulnerable. It's this because you're writing it assumably to somebody you know and already has sort of
Yeah,
an idea of who you are. I love that idea. What encouragement, ladies, to I mean, if it didn't start with a letter, and there's been so many memoirs written from, like I found these box of letters in my grandma's attic and it turned into a memoir. And you're like, wow,
yeah,
what a fascinating story. I never even thought about that. And I
yeah,
think, and another thing that I haven't mentioned, and thank you for bringing that up, is when you do decide to join in, you become part of a larger community, larger support system. You don't just decide, I wonder if I want to write a chapter, and then we're throwing you out with the sharks. No, Elise Publishing, Kristen Bentley, the founder and CEO, is very, very, very thoughtful in making sure that whether you're an aspiring author or an experienced author, there's a community that supports you. And then she also will walk you through like
yeah.
structuring.
Step
Um,
by step by step. Yes.
yeah.
Well done. Well done. Yeah.
So I really want to encourage you all that I am a firm believer, along with Deanna, that we as women, I mean, men you're listening to, but I really want to reach women's ears that your story is worth telling, your story is worth reading, and your story is worth being remembered after many years and centuries that we are no longer on Earth. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this time, Deanna. Thank you for sharing with us that although you're an expert writer, you were still struggling through, why did I decide to do
Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this.
and
I'm
we're
so
so
glad to be part of
excited.
it. Thank you for asking. I thank you for that.
Absolutely. And also, please, in the comments, we're going to put Deanna's other books so you can already get the taste and feel of how she writes and what she writes about so that we can get super excited about the chapter that she has in Leaders Within. Thank you again, everyone. Until tomorrow.
Thank
Bye.
you.